Hello everybody, my name is Kai Wehner. I work as Technology Evangelist for TIBCO, and today I want to show you how to deploy a microservice developed with BusinessWorks Container Edition to different platforms like Docker, Kubernetes or CloudFoundry. I will also demonstrate how you can leverage other open source cloud native frameworks like Consul or Spring Cloud Config. So this picture in the end shows what I want to demonstrate today. However, I will not focus on the continuous delivery and DevOps stuff using things like Maven and these kind of frameworks. So let's begin. This is really just live demo. And first I want to show you the development environment, Visual Coding IDE. Most of you probably know BusinessWorks IDE already. Here you can create integration microservices with the palette here to integrate different technologies and to implement transformation and business logic. This is a little bit more complex process to show you what you typically do with BusinessWorks in the real world. But what I want to do today is I want to use a more simple service. Here the focus really is on deploying it to different cloud platforms. Therefore, I have already developed a small service. It's a REST service, and the REST service does not do much. The key here really is to demonstrate you how to deploy to different technologies and also how to scale it out using cloud native features. And therefore, what this REST service is doing, it's a GET post, a GET request, and it's showing you the username, the region of the user, and very important for this demo, the host name. Because here you can later see when we scale it out to different instances of servers or containers that the host name will change then. So this is really basically the application I want to show you today and deploy it. Let's run it here once in the IDE to show you how it works. That's typically the first step before you deploy it somewhere. You test it here in the IDE. You can also use debugging mode and use the Eclipse native debugger. But here I'm really just using run application to show you shortly how to use and test this BusinessWorks application here. So as we see, the application is started. So let's just type in lrestdoc and get the Swagger URL here. And here we go. Let's copy it and now go to the web browser. And what I want to show you here now is just how the basic service works. So we use Swagger in our product, so that's more or less the de facto standard for REST definitions like SOAP and WSDL for old web services. Here we use Swagger for REST. And here we can now see, if I click and paste, that we can simply test this service. And you can see here are the three parameters: user, region, and host name. And this just returns my default name, Kai, Germany, and here my local internal IP address of the Amazon instance. So all this demo here is running on an AWS instance, and this is the internal IP address or host name of it. With this, I just wanted to show you this basic service and how it works. And the key now is that we can export all these kind of BusinessWorks application, like you build a Java application or any other technology. We can simply go here to Overview and we can export the application. And key really is that we only export the application once, and we can then use this package and deploy to all the different platforms like Docker, Kubernetes, CloudFoundry, or any other supported technology. So one more thing to show you here is that I've also defined some properties, and this is more or less also for demo purposes, so that you can see we have different properties for Pivotal CloudFoundry, for Docker, and for Kubernetes, where K8S is usually the shortcut on the web for. And so this is just as background information for you. And now, after I've shown you the application I want to deploy and I've exported it, I now want to first begin with Pivotal CloudFoundry. So let's go here to our terminal and make it a little bit bigger for you. And what we can see here now, I will first type cf build packs. So if you know CloudFoundry, CloudFoundry uses different build packs. For example, for programming languages and platforms like Java, Ruby, or Node.js. And what TIBCO has done, they have built, or we have built a BusinessWorks Container Edition build pack, which you can leverage to deploy your BusinessWorks application in a cloud-native style to Pivotal. So today we use Pivotal CloudFoundry, but others are also already supported. Okay, so what you can now do, you can, and I have here, you can see in my directory here, you can see that I have already exported here my my demos, which is in the end one EAR file always. And now what you can do is you can do CF push, which means CloudFoundry is pushing this to the cloud platform. Here we have a TIBCO based CloudFoundry platform, which all of our developers can use. And usually, of course, you have your own instance or one deployed by a vendor like Pivotal. And I will not push it here because I already pushed it already. So let's now go to the web UI. Here we are starting with Pivotal, and this is the web UI where you can manage this platform as a service. So you can do all the things via scripting like you have just seen in the terminal or via the web UI. And what we have here now is I have deployed several services, and one of the services is the one which I just showed you in the IDE before, in the studio, and it's the sample REST service. Here you can already see it has 2 instances, and therefore we can also test it out and that it's a little bit of scaling, let's say. So if we now go to the Swagger UI, here you can see this is the REST test interface for exactly this application, the BusinessWorks microservice I deployed here. So let's refresh the browser, and here we can test it again. And here you now see it's the same interface, and I did not redevelop anything, I just redeployed it. But the difference here is 2 things. Let's first focus on the host name. Because when you see that I tried out more and more again, and if you take a look at the host name is changing sometimes because I scaled out to 2 different instances of this application. And the platform as a service solution, in this case CloudFoundry, does all the scaling under the hood for you and the service discovery. So you do not have to care about host names or IP addresses or these kind of things. So that's a huge benefit when you deploy your microservice to a cloud native application. And the second thing now to discuss is that you see here the username is not just by default name Kai, but I have a longer string which shows in this case that I have used Spring Cloud Config, which is another cloud native framework which we support. It's open source, part of the Spring project, and this is a distributed key value store which you can leverage, and you can also use this as service within CloudFoundry. And to explain you this in a little bit more detail, let's take a look at the command line first. Here you can see at Marketplace that CloudFoundry, this is now the Pivotal CloudFoundry. If you go to IBM Bluemix, for example, you see different services or Marketplace stuff. But here you see, for example, the service registry. This is which we leverage here for our Spring Cloud Config. I have done a lot of this configuration before because otherwise the recording would be too long. But what you can see now, if I click CF, if I type CF services, it shows me which services I use in my specific CloudFoundry instance. And the key here is that I use the SCCS service, which is in the end the Spring Cloud Config service. And I have already configured it that it works together with my sample REST Kai REST BusinessWorks application. Let's take a look at what that means. So if we go here back to CloudFoundry, I have here defined different services. This is also following the cloud native concepts and 12-factor apps that you add these kind of services via baking service. That means they are independent of our application or cloud instance, and you just connect to them. And I have already configured here, so I have to log in again. I have configured the Spring Cloud Config service here. You can see it's not much, just a little bit of configuration. And in the background, Spring CloudFoundry by default uses GitHub. In GitHub, you can configure your key value pairs, and the benefit of that it's what some call also infrastructure as code, that you can also have a version control system behind the configuration files and not just behind the source code. And it's configured here that it uses exactly this properties file, and that is the reason why in this case our Swagger test shows exactly this username, because we use this distributed baking service of Spring CloudFoundry, of Spring Cloud Config in the back end. So this is what I wanted to show you. One more thing, as you see in the console, I have another service here. I have a paper trail service and bound it to my services. Paper trail is another, it's a software as a service log analytics tool, so an external tool, not part of TIBCO. But that's often the case, of course, that you also have to integrate these kind of services into your platform and services. And this one again is also integrated as baking service just via configuration in CloudFoundry. And when I now click here again the REST service and try it out, you will see here in Pivotal and Paper Trail that you see here a new log file. And these kind of services are used for log analytics. Paper Trail is a very lightweight one, but also not very powerful. For more complex use cases with many different distributed microservices, you should probably leverage something like TIBCO LogLogic, which is a much more powerful tool with also visual coding and configuration and these kind of things. So, and this was the first example. This was Pivotal CloudFoundry. And now what we also want to do, we want to use Docker. So without any platform as a service, let's next to Docker. But what we want to do here, we want to not use Spring Cloud config for the configuration, but in this case, just to show you that we support different open source frameworks and can connect to them easily and out of the box. Here in this case, I use Consul, which is another open source framework for distributed configuration management and also our service discovery. And here, as you can see, I have configured two key value pairs already. This is simply to show you and demonstrate again. In this case now, my name is Kai, but we are using Docker and we're using the Consul config. So this is basically the configuration in Consul. And now let's go back to the terminal and first start with Docker images. Here you see I have several images already in my system, which I have created, and one of them which I have built here is the one based on TIBCO/BWCE, and let's take a look at the Docker file for that. So here you can see it's a very simple one, and what it is doing, it is using the base image which you can get from TIBCO if you have BusinessWorks Container Edition, and this is really adjusted to be cloud native and that you can deploy your BusinessWorks Container Edition applications also to Docker. So similar to what we have with the build packs for CloudFoundry, here in the end it's some kind of build pack for Docker. And in this case I just add my REST service, which is this one EAR file, and I also use expose 8083 to expose a port which I want to use for this REST service. And that's basically it. Okay, and now let's run the service. I use my demo file here where I can use it so that you do not have to watch me typing all the time. And therefore we go here, and now what we want to do is we run Docker and use it to run our service, our Docker container. So here, and what you can see here in this Docker command is that we reference the Docker sample REST Kai container to the Consul container, which is another container already running. And here now you see that this Docker container is starting with our BWCE microservice. And after the service here started, we start a new terminal. And let me also make this a little bit bigger for you. And now Let's clear this. And now we want to do a Docker ps-a to show you all the running Docker containers. And here you see one which was created 45 seconds ago and is running since then, is the new service or container which runs my BWCE microservice. And now we can test this one again. So this is now the running BusinessWorks Container Edition application. So let's go back to our browser. And here I do a reload again. We use again Swagger and we want to test this service here. So here we do a get user. And here you can see important the result. Here now my username is Docker via Consul config, because here now it refers to my Consul configuration. All right. So this is basically when we want to run Docker, in this case on the local machine or local development laptop or something like this. So you can now leverage this Docker container and image to use it with any kind of Docker native tooling like Docker Swarm, or you can use advanced technology. In this case, I'm using Kubernetes, but you can also use other ones like OpenShift or any other kind of Docker-based service. So let's go next to Kubernetes. For Kubernetes, you have to know that I'm running this in this demo on Amazon AWS, and I have already started the Kubernetes cluster with one master and several minions. So there's a distributed Kubernetes container cluster already running. And what I've also done, I have used the AWS ECS Repository. This is the Docker repository of Amazon Web Services, and here I've uploaded my 2 Docker images, one for my BWCE application for the REST service and one with the Docker container for Consul. Of course, you can leverage any kind of Docker repository, but here if we run Kubernetes on AWS, it simply makes sense to also store the images on the Amazon container service repository here. But that's really no need for that. I just do it for convenience here. So as I said, here are my images hosted, and now I can show you I'm also running Kubernetes already. And what I already did, I deployed the same BusinessWorks ER file via this image, and I also reused the Consul image. So that's the great thing of Docker, right? You can build it once and deploy it anywhere. And so here is my Kubernetes, where you see the replication controller and the pods. And now let's go back here. I will close or stop this running container and close it. And we are here in a new terminal. And what I want to show you shortly is the YAML files. So here you see 2 YAML files. That's the configuration files, how you can deploy it to Kubernetes. You can also do it in the web UI or via other things or whatever you want to do, but here I use the YAML file. So let's take a short look at these here. Let me do it a little bit bigger again. And here I do not want to go into too much detail. This basically shows such one YAML file for deploying the Consul image and container to Kubernetes. And also we have the BWCE service dev YAML for deploying the BWCE microservice. And this one here again, it has a few environment variables for the BW profile, app config, and also it references again to the Consul server so that it can work together with the Consul container, which is also deployed on Amazon in this case. So let's go to the web UI, and here you see in Kubernetes I've already deployed both, and the nice thing here, you see always when they are running, and you always see if you, for example, stop a container, if it fails, how it's restarting automatically. So here Kubernetes is doing for you a lot of these things like automatic service discovery, failover, restarting containers, and scalability, and all these kind of things can be done with Kubernetes. I mean, that's what it is built for. But we just want to show you here the BWCE server and the BWCE service. And here you see the web URL. and you can here call the REST service. First, I want to show you Consul again. This is basically the same configuration, but this is now also deployed and running on Kubernetes. And therefore here we have the configuration Kubernetes on ECS. And if I now go to the Swagger URL for this BWCE container and do a refresh, then we will see that this now returns Kai on Kubernetes ECS. So here you see, I use the other Consul one. So this is basically what I wanted to show you today. Just to complete this story here, I think a key focus is also how to make available these APIs and microservices you deploy to other developers, to internal departments, to partners, or to the public. And therefore, we often leverage an API management solution. In this case, I use TIBCO Measure. And in this simple example, it's just a proxy. And it's a proxy to use the Pivotal CloudFoundry microservice I just deployed. And here I created an API for that, so that everybody can access that easily from the outside world, also with different pricing options and all these kind of things you can do in an API management solution. The great thing here is that we already have out-of-the-box connectivity between our integration solutions and between Measure. So for example, you can simply deploy a microservice based on Docker or to Kubernetes or to CloudFoundry and automatically publish it also here to Measure, so that it's exposed by default automatically to the public. And if you think about things like DevOps and continuous integration, continuous delivery, this is a perfect fit, of course. You can do all of that manually in the web UIs, but you can also script all of that and do it automatically in all your build processes. And that's basically the end of my demo. If you have any questions or feedback, I'm glad if you come back to me and give me feedback about your stories with this cloud agnostic deployment of microservices. Thank you for watching.